do a review in Memorim Melukotim. This is in volume 4, and this is the 30th Maimer. This is a Maimer that Rebbe said Shabbos Parshas Teitzei Yud Gimel Elul in Tafshin Yud Daled, and the Yud Gimel Elul Tafshin Yud Daled, as we'll see in the note, is the wedding anniversary of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Maimer is the לקראת Pnei Shabbos Nekbala, the famous Maimer that everybody chazers on the chuppah by the Kabbalah Sponim. And they also do, there is the Maimer that was said by the Rebbe at the wedding of the Frierdiker Rebbe, which is this Maimer. Then this Maimer is based on that Maimer. We'll see in a second. It says here in the note that this was published Yotzela Oir with in connection with the 50th anniversary of the wedding of the Rebbe, which was in Tafresh Peites to Tafshin Lametes. This was published then. The Rebbe said it in Tafshin Yudalad, but it was published then. The previous Rebbe said the Maimer L'Chadodi at the wedding of the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said the Maimer in Tafshin Yudalad on Yud Gimel Elul, which was the anniversary of the Frierdiker Rebbe's wedding. The Rebbe says Maimer Zed says that further in the note was said on Shabbos Parshas Teitzei Yud Gimel Elul. And that is the day, it says in the note number 1, the day of the marriage of the Frierdiker Rebbe in year Tafresh Nun Zayin. And in Tafshin Yud Daled, Tafshin Yud Daled was the 25th year anniversary of the Rebbe. That was the time when they gave out this booklet from the Maimer. The Rebbe said the 50th anniversary of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer anniversary, and here it was published 25 years after the Rebbe's wedding. And as it appears, it's based on explanation on the Maimer L'Chadodi in Tafresh Peites, which was said by the Frierdiker Rebbe. As printed, it says Note Gimel in the Drushi Chasana, which was published also in Brooklyn, Tafshin Lametes. It's also in Sefer Morocco Tresim. And the Rebbe says, they said here in the note that look what he said there before he opened up with this Maimer, talking about also over there, I believe that inviting all the grandparents, to the Simcha of the wedding of the children. This was a way of the Rebbe inviting them through the Maimer. But in any event, this Maimer, the Rebbe said in Parshas Teitzei Yud Gimel Elul Tafshin Yud Daled. Let's look inside and we'll do a review of the Maimer. Doidi Likras Kalo Pnei Shabbos Nekbala. So come, my beloved, let's go towards the Kalo. And this, we say this in the davening of Friday night in Kabbalah Shabbos, Pnei Shabbos Nekabla. Let us greet this Shabbos. So the Dodi, the beloved, comes towards the Kala. And this is a metaphor. The Dodi is for the Chosin. And then you have the Kala, that's the bride. And the Shabbos is considered the Kala, and we're going out to greet the Kala like the Chosin goes out to greet the Kala. The Rebbe will explain this all these in Yorim according to the inner meaning as well, where the Pnei Shabbos and the union of Kala, which is the level of Malchus, and Doidi is the level of Zo, and the connection, the union that takes place between Zo and Malchus, the Doidi and the Kala. This is, of course, before the wedding of the Chosin and the Kala, and how the Chosin goes towards the Kala. Now, the first step is in the chuppah itself. There's the tradition that the Chosin comes out to greet the Kala. Of course, this is my own adding here. It doesn't say in the Maimer, but goes out. And then there is the union from the chosin and the kala. So let's see what it says. So my father-in-law, the Rebbe, in his Maimer L'Chodoidi, which is part of the Drushe Chasana, the Maimorim that he said at the wedding, at the Rebbe's wedding. He brings there in that Maimer Mipirkei the Rabbi Lezer, from the Pirkei Rabbi Lezer. That a chosin is compared to a king, and a bride is compared to a malka, a queen. Who is the king and who is the queen that we are saying it's a metaphor, the chosin kala? Who is the chosin is like the king and the kala is like the queen? Chosin's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the king, the chosin, the groom, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The kala, who is the bride? That's the malka, Hiknasis Yisrael. So this is a union that takes place where the chosin comes towards the kala to Knesset Yisrael, where the groom goes to the kala. When we talk about in the spheres, in Atzilus, so what the chosin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's Zo, Zeir Ampin, those are the midos, the 6 midos, and Malchus is the kala. So Zo and Malchus, there's a union between Zo and Malchus. The chosin who bechinas Zo, chosin is in the level of Zeir Ampin. The kala, he bechinas Malchus, and kala is the level of Malchus. What does it mean, L'chodoidi, Likras kala? That Zo goes to Malchus. Zehu L'chodoidi, Likras kala. Go, my beloved, towards the kala, and then we say Pnei Shabbos. The Kabbalah will greet the Shabbos. Sho inyan hamshochas zo lemalchus. That's the idea of bringing down, drawing down from the spheres, from the midos of zo into malchus. That's the doidi, the zo, the melech going to the malka, to the malchus. They say that hamshochehu, the order of the way it was drawn down, asher tchilot tzorich liyas hamshochechi tzonish mizol malchus. First, there needs to be an external to extend externally from Zo to Malchus. Zo is giving to Malchus, but first Zo gives it in a superficial, in an external way, and there is the union for Zo and Malchus to be together. There is 2 parts to it. This is the external part that takes place first, and after that external connection, when Zo goes to Malchus, it also the inner of Zo goes to Malchus. That is only external, meaning it's surrounding, it doesn't go inside. And then there is an inner extension that it goes into the inside, just as the chuppah is the external connection from the chanos and the kala, and then comes the yichud, etc. This is the actual order. Anytime there is a flow going from the one that is giving to the recipient, the tzirichilo tzorich li is hamshvochas hamashpia mibchinas chitzonius shaloi lebchinas chitzonius hamakabel. First, you need the mashpia to give, to draw down from his external level to the external level of the recipient. That extension that he extends brings the recipient up to the level of the mashpia, and then the mashpia can give in a way of panemius. So first you need the external to raise the recipient to the level of the mashpia, so the mashpia can give the panemius. Through this giving, through the chitzonius hashpah, the mekabel, the recipient, is elevated. Li is korev lemadregas hamashpia, to be close to the level of the mashpia. Be'achar kach yuchal li is lekabel hamshocha pnimis mamashpia, and then he will be able to receive the inner hamshocha from the mashpia. Maybe alzeh beis misholim. So the Rebbe, the previous Rebbe in the Maimer L'Chadoiti in Tafresh Petes, by the Rebbe's wedding, brought down two examples in which we see that first we have the hashpah chitzonius in order to achieve the hashpah pnimius later on. So it brings one is mahashpah serav l'talmid, how when the teacher wants to give to his students, how we have these two levels over there, and also the av hamishtashayim b'nei hakot, as the Rebbe will explain in the next Maimor, in the next Oisius, and like a father who is playing with his young son. So the Rebbe says, first off, that it's not just to find another place, other places in which we see to demonstrate that you need first the hashpah chitzonius in order to go to the hashpah pnimius, but also to point out that even though we're saying it's hashpah chitzonius, yet it is a very powerful hashpah. It's even in a way greater than the hashpah pnimius. But yet, ultimately, the hashpah pnimis is what does it. That does it. Yesh loymar. We can say what is the intent with these misholim? Mashpah serav l'tav. So about loy rak lahavi dugmois. Let's say that hamshoch is not just coming to give you example, the order how the hamshocha works. That shahashpah chitzonius hi hagdom alashpah pnimis, that the external flow is an introduction to the inner flow, alagam levayer, but also he wants to explain goydel ha'ilui shebebeis hashpahs elu, the great advantage that we have in these two flows. There is greatness to both of them, even the chitzonius and also certainly the pnimius. The gam hashpah chitzonius, even the external flow, hidarga nailis b'yoser, is a very high step. V'ad sheyesh bo ilui legabe hashpah pnimis, to the extent it actually has an advantage, even though it's a chitzonius external, but it has an advantage relative to the hashpah pnimis, to the inner, the flow that follows the inner flow. Ki hashpah chitzonius shu shei b'chinas maki, because the external flow, which is surrounding is above the vessels of the recipient from being able to receive it. So that means he gets something which is even beyond him. As opposed to the inner flow that is received in the vessel of the recipient. And yet, notwithstanding the great flow, that this is higher and makif, and yet that hashpah, that's merely an introduction to the inner flow. Because specifically through the inner flow, we reach to a higher level, which is even higher than makif. So while the hashpah pnimis is higher than the kliya makabel, but the hashpah pnimis gets you even higher than makif. Zahu al kol kvoid chuppah. So the pasuk says all of those who are honored by the chuppah. So the chuppah goes for the chosun and the kala. Kala covered means honored, something above them. Sheheim beis bechinas covered. This is two levels in covered. in surrounding them, in honoring them, the kavod chosen, the kavod kala, the honor of the chosen, the honor of the kala, which is the makif of zo, the chosen, the zeir ampin, that's the chosen, like we say before, that chosen HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's so, and malchus, and the kavod kala, the kavod of malchus. Ulamaila yoser, but when you talk even in a higher level, this is the chuppah, the makif for chosen kala, for zo and malchus. But this goes even higher in atzilus, kavod the abba, kavod the ema, the honor of chokhmah, abba, and kavod the ema, the mother, the father and mother, the honor of the makif of bina. So first you have the chitzonius, you have the kavod of the chosen and the kala. That's a makif dika connection. That's the chuppah connection called kavod chuppah. And then you come to the union of Ava Em Chochma Bina and the Yichud of Zon, the union of Zovanuka. That's already Hashpah of Pnimis. The Im Heyos Sheshneim Kovid v'Chuppah, the Ava Em, the Kovid Chuppah the Zon Venuka. Even though that the level of Kovid, which is Chuppah of Chochma, whether it's Chochma Bina Ava Em or Kovid v'Chuppah the Zon Zovanuka, Heim Bechinas Makif, it's in the level of Makif. So why do we need the hashpah pnimis? Mekomokim yedua shedavke beyichud zun. That davke, when it comes to the union of zov and nukva, shu yichud pnimi, through that level of union, to the level of yichud nimshacha etzem. That's where the essence goes even higher than the level of the makib, but that's the whole essence. Now, mentioned before, he gave two mishalim. So first, the Rebbe is going to explain the hashpoed from Rav Talmud, and then the next one will explain the playing of a father with his young son. The first mashal is from the flow that goes from a teacher to the student. They say that hashpoed who, so what's the order? The actual teaching, that's called an inner flow, to teach the student from the ideas that the rabbi wants to impart on him. But the beginning starts off that the rabbi says something like a funny idea to stimulate the student, and they make something light and they laugh. And that's the general connection between the Rav and the Talmud, and then the Talmud is elevated to be able, the rabbi, to teach with awe and fear. Say that Ashishpahu. So what is the order of that flow? Like our sages tell us, the Mekah made the Pasuk Luhu L'Rabbanon, that before he started teaching the rabbis, Amar Milso Dibidichusa, he said a matter which is funny, a joke sort of. Botchu Rabbanon, the Rabbanon laughed, became, happy. But after he made the joke, Yosef Be'emso, he sat with awe, and he opened up with the learning. So you have these two parts. The Hamil Sodib the Chuse Shekoidem Halimud, the matter, light matter that comes before the learning. Shu Inyan Sichas Chulin Shel Talmid Chacham Shetzricha Limud. What is the light? Doesn't talk about just a silly joke. We're talking about, there is the weekly words the Gemara says about Talmud Chacham. You need to study, which means they have insight. Yet they're sichas chulin, they're just ordinary talk of a Talmud Chacham before intently getting involved in the discussion. So that was the milsa, the chusa that preceded the learning. That's just merely external from the rabbis trying to impart to the student. But however, this flow, that's the introduction. Is the pasuk to the inner flow in which he opened up with the learning, the actual study. Because specifically through this light, the sichas chulin, this opens up the heart, the mind, and the mind of the student. That he should be a vessel to receive the inner flow, that the information, the shmaita, the teaching that the rabbi wants to teach him, this opens them up, and then he can get the Apshach Pnimis. The Rebbe says now, where does this come from? It's interesting that the Moker Moshul Zeh Hu Ma'ad Mur Ha'em Tzoi B'Teres Chayim. The source for this parable of the student with the Rav comes from the Mittler Rebbe in the book Teres Chayim. But in the Teres Chayim, Teres Chayim, Lehuva Zeh K'Moshul Lo Inyan De L'Chadoidi. Over there, he brings this moshul, but not as an example to this concept of l'chadoidi that we're discussing here, that in order for the Zohar to come to Malchus, there has to be the Ashpa Chitzonis and the Pnimis, but over there it says by itself. But the Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab, that begins with the word Smuchim La'ad, Tofreish Peis, this was the Maimer that the Rebbe Chakad Nur Rashab Nishmos Eiden, that the Rebbe Rashab Nishmos Eiden B'Yom Hoildosei, on the day of his birthday, on the 20th day of Mar Cheshvan, in the year Tofreish Pei, Ha'achrim Ba'almadein, that was his last birthday in this physical world, because the Rebbe Rashab, of course, passed away on Beis Nisan. So this was the Maimer that he said on his birthday, his last birthday in this world, on the year Tafresh Pei. So in this Maimer over there, the Rebbe Rashab says, Mekasher b'derech efsher, he wants to tie in a possible way, like he says there, be'efsher shezeh inyan chulu. So over there, the Rebbe Rashab says, maybe this is the idea in the Maimer Smuchim La'ad, or inyan the Ilsa Divid Chusa, lo inyan de l'chadoidi. He ties it, the idea of this light matter that the teacher says before he starts learning, to the idea of l'chadoidi. So that's what the Rebbe Rashab connected the marshal of the Teres Chayim of the Mittler Rebbe to the idea of l'chadoidi. But ubedivra hamaschil l'chadoidi, but in the Maimer l'chadoidi that the Rebbe gave by the Frierdiker Rebbe, by the Rebbe's wedding, the Frierdiker Rebbe said, Hishmit kveit kidushas merichom yadmur. My father-in-law, the Rebbe, left out tevas ve'efsher. He takes out the word ve'efsher, that it's possible that this is the inyan of l'chadoidi v'koysev ze b'pshitus, and he writes it as it's obvious. This is the connection. The Rebbe is just clarifying over here that this moshul is not directly. The previous Rebbe tied this together from his father, quoting his father, but he didn't quote his father, who only tied it in. He said, possibly we can tie it, but the Frierdiker Rebbe writes it, no, it's tied together. That's the way he writes it. In any event, the Teres Chayim Shom, and in the Teres Chayim, that's the source of this whole moshul of the Mittler Rebbe. After bringing down the moshul of the Hashpoah Pnimis, Mevayer, the Shoydish Inyan Haschoik, that the root of the idea of laughter, we say that Batchi Rabbanon, the Rabbanon were happy. So he says the root of the inyan of schoik, of laughter, umetainug haposhut she bilti murkov tchlal. It comes from the delight that is simple without any mixture. It's not mixed in, it's just pure delight by itself. Simple delight, nothing, just delight itself, the highest level of delight. When we move on from this, we can understand the shoirish shemilsa dibidichusa, that the root of the milsa dibidichusa, shu tainuga poshut, that is the level, as we just said, that's the simple tainug in its most original, simple form. That's higher than what follows, the seichel that the Rav gives to this Talmud that follows. Because the light that you get from understanding the idea that's an intellect is not a simple delight. That's already a delight that comes through a combined, it comes from the seichel. The seichel brings you to that type. So it seems like the higher level of tainug is the level of the chusa. Omnom, and yet, but we're saying that hashpa is only external. So therefore, hashpa pnimis, through the inner flow, then we get even to a greater level. But the idea is the betainug aposhut gufa yesh beis dargas. There are two levels in tainug aposhut. Tainug aposhut hamurkov, a simple tainug, but which is also murkov, which is also put together. That would be the one that comes through hashpos haseichel. The tainug ha'atzmi habilti murgosh, and the essence of the delight which is not felt, which is the tainug be'etzem, which is the level of bat chisroik. So the davke ayidei ha'ashpoa pnimis. Forget, so davke do hashpoa pnimis. Shatalmid mekabel b'pnimiyusei, that is with the gets magim the tainug ha'atzmi habilti murgash, to the one, the essence tainug which is not felt, which is even higher than the tainug haposhet. Basically, through the ashpoa pnimis, you get to a higher level than tainug ha'atzmi habilti murgash. Velochein of Razal, and that's why our sages of blessed memory say midai yoser mikulam, that he received from his students more than anyone else. The reason for that is because through the Talmidim, the Hashpah, he reaches to the Tainug Atzmi Habilti Murgash, which is higher than the Tainug HaPoshut, but yet it's Murgash. It's still Murgash. So therefore, it's a greater level that you get is through the students, because you get to the Tainug Atzmi Habilti Murgash. Now, the second moshul is Gimel. Moshul HaBeis. Second moshul is Ben Yanik V'Kotten, a son who is a nursing son, baby, a minor. She'ov Ivreitze Lihishtasheya Imoy. Yanik means a very small child. Kotten is also small, but this is even smaller. She'ov Ivreitze Lihishtasheya Imoy Ponim El Ponim. The father wants to delight and play, entertain himself with the child, but he wants face to face. So how is he going to reach the face of the child while the child is a minor? So what does the father do? The father needs to lower his hands to raise his small young son, so that he should be able to delight with him in close proximity, face to face. So he has to raise him first. The raising of the child is only an external matter. That's only introduction. The external, the inner connection that follows. The light. This moshul is in the Torah to the Magid, the Rabba Magid. The Shom Yeshna Haisofa over there is an addition which the Rebbe did not say that, and the Maimer, the Friedrich Rebbe did not say the Maimer has not been quoted in the Maimer. But there it says Sha'akotn Mishtasheya Bezokin Shaloi Shalab, that the child, when he brings him up, he plays with his beard. Bezok Shaloi Shalab. So what is this idea playing with the beard? We can say that he's hinting over here, that when we draw down the makif that precedes the flow that comes in and inside, it's from a level which is higher than ishtalshlus. And that's why it's the beard. Because the zokin, that's why he mentions the beard, the Zokin who is Gimel Tikunei Dikna. Zokin references the 13 Tikunim of the beard, 13 strands and Tikunim of the beards, which is the Yud Gimel Midas Arachamim Shelamayla Mihishtalshlus, the 13 attributes of mercy, which are higher than Hishtalshlus. That's where it comes from, to play with the beard, to bring down the beard, to bring down higher than Hishtalshlus. But even though the Yud Gimel Midas Arachim and higher of Hishtalshlus, Yesh Lahem Ez Shayches LeHishtalshlus, they still have some sort of a connection to Hishtalshlus. Like the Pasuk says, it says, remember your compassion, which is part of the Gimel Midas Arachim Hashem Kil Rachum Bechanum. So Zechayra Chamecha. But we say Kimei Olam Hema because they are from the world, meaning there is a connection with Olam. That's what they're called Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim. Maloshem Medida, they're measured, so they're not completely higher than Ishtalshalus, but they have a connection to Ishtalshalus. Gam Yadu Abinyan Hasayda Shora Bilbad, that it's inside us, that's only a little bit that comes through. So therefore, we start off with Yud Gimel Tikunei Dikna, that's the Makif. That's the Ashpo Chitzonis. Omno, Adidei Ashpo Pnimis Shalach Rizeh, but that's followed by the Ashpo Pnimis. Avshi Lamato Mibchinas Makif, even though it's lower than the Makif, than the Yud Gimel Tikunei Dikna, than the Nimshach HaEtzem Shalamayla Mahamakif, but then the essence that is higher than Makif comes down. Al-Derech Sif Anal Sif Aleph, similar to what we said before in Sif Aleph. The Mailas Yichud Zun, in the advantage of the Yichud Zun, so Yichud Pnimi, Al Yichud Avo, which is the inner Yichud over the Yichud of Avo, which is Chochma Bina. This is Kibir Admarat Tzemach Tzedek, becoming mechanism as the Alter Rebbe explained in many places. So there is actually an advantage of Yichud Zun even more than the Yichud Avo, because Yichud Zun is considered to be a Yichud Pnimi, and the Pnimi is the Etzem comes after through that Hamshach. Likewise, we can also understand in the idea of bringing down Zo in Malchus, the Yichud Zo and Nukva, these two Hamshochas, the Hamshocha Chitzonis and the Hamshocha Pnimis. Shaseder Bozehu, the order, and this is Kinal Sif Aleph, as said earlier in Sif Aleph, Hashem Mekoidem Tzorich Liyas HaHamshocha Chitzonis, first there needs to be a external drawing down, and then an inner drawing down. Even this external hamshocha is a great hamshocha al derech hanal siv beis gimel, like we said before in siv beis gimel, that the hamshocha chitzonis is high madrega shebechinas makiv shalamaylo mishtalshlus v'kelim. That's the level of makiv which is higher than what can be nishtalshu and vessels. And because it's higher than ishtalshu, so that hamshocha that comes from the makiv is not nikletes b'sfiras hamalchus b'pnimiyus, so it's not absorbed in its inside. Because this is beyond the limitations of a vessel. But still, it still remains, while it's a very high, above ishtalshlus, it's makif, can't come down to pnimis, but yet is still external. It's only a ray alone. When we talk about is through the Amshocha inside, Shemiskabelas b'malchus b'pnimiyus, so that reaches the malchus into its inside. Magim, then you reach l'mayla yoser mibchinas hamakiv, to higher than the makiv. Well, even higher than the makiv. And the idea is the shoyresh hamalchus l'mayla mishoyresh zo. The root of malchus is higher than the root of zo, of zeirampin. Meaning the shoyresh of the kala, the malchus, is higher than the shoyresh of the chosn of zo. The shoyresh hazo hu michitzonius hakeser. The root of zo is from the externality of the level of keser, and it would be from the level of arich. And the shoyresh hamalchus hu mipnimius hakeser. Malchus comes from atik. I'm adding those words, but even though in Zo it also says Zo ba'atika achid v'talya. So you see that even Zeirampin, you see that even the midos are one and hanging in Atik. Hara Yadua, but it's known that it doesn't mean she'ena kavona b'zal Atik mamish. We don't mean here actual Atik. Is atik, only the externality of atik. As opposed to the root for malchus, he bipnimius atik. That's in the inner of atik, which is called the radlo. The ratio delay is yado. That's in the inner of atik. But nevertheless, so why is, if the shoyresh of malchus is even higher than zo, so why does it need the ashpor chitzonis to reach the level of mekomokai? Mitzad yirid also lamato, because it descends below harishor shu be'elam. So the root is hidden. Gilu shoyresh hamalchus. What reveals the root of malchus? Well, yidei zo davke. That comes davke's v'sho. Ba'al yidei zeh gufo. And through this itself, through Zor revealing the root of Malchus, Sfiras HaMalchus mis'alis l'maylo mizor. Sfiras HaMalchus is elevated, goes up higher than Zor. Bezeu inyan seitan hamshocha. This is the idea, the order, the way it comes down. The tchilot tzorich liyis hamshocha zo b'malchus. First, there needs to be Zor drawing down into Malchus, be'oifon sheyurgash, in a way that it's felt, should be felt, inyan hazo shelamayla Malchus, the idea of Zo, that it's higher Malchus. Once Malchus senses the advantage of Zo, through that davke will gilu sheresh hamalchus. That is the revelation of sheresh hamalchus. Abo mikol mokoim. But still, Kivon Sham Shocha Ki mitzad mailas zo. Since the Hamshocha is because of the advantage of zo, so it means that we're considering here zo. Yesh lo shaychas liishtalshlus. As we said before, with regards, it's still connected to the world. That it's shaychus to the world. So over here, since it comes because of the advantage of zo, then it means as a connection to shtalshlus. Davke al yidei ha'amshocha pnimis shemiskabelas b'malchus b'pnimiyusa. But it's specifically through the inner hamshocha that is received the malchus. In an insight, that comes because of the advantage of malchus, because it's mushrash in atikin adlo. Then you reach to the level of malchus, which is the root of malchus, which is higher than zo. To the extent not only that you reach up to the high level, but it turns around that Malchus becomes the one that is mashpia and zo. As we say, Eishes Chayil becomes that Teres Baila, the wife of the Chayil, the recipient, the Malchus becomes the crown, becomes the mashpia to the Bible. Both. Yesh Loimar. We can say Shezehu Gamkein Habir Bazeh maybe. The explanation that it brings in the beginning of the Maimer, Beis Kitzoves Be'inyan HaShabbos. It brings two extremes, two ends in the idea of Shabbos. On one end, we say that Shabbos Nikra Malko. She's called the queen. She's Sfiras HaMalchus. It's the Sfira of Malchus. Lamato Mikol HaSfiras of Kabelas Mem. It's below all the Sfiras and receives them. Kemaimer, like we say, Siharo Les Lo Megam Oklum. The moon has nothing of its own. So which means it needs to be given everything. It's the lowest. The moon, which represents Malchus, is a recipient. Doesn't have any light of its own. It gets from the sun. So the example of a Shabbos. The dafke mishatorach be'erev Shabbos yechel b'Shabbos. If you only meet one who put effort in before Shabbos will eat Shabbos, which means Shabbos and alone, you won't get nothing. You need to work it before Shabbos. Well, but on the other hand, all days get their blessing from Shabbos. So Shabbos has nothing but gets from the other days, and yet all the days gets blessed from the Shabbos. It's not just that Shabbos is holier than other days, but more that it gives the flow, the bracha into the other days. And then we say, but without the other day, Shabbos has nothing. The idea is, the 7 days of the week, those are the 7 days of the building of all the spheres. The Sheishes Yimei HaChoil, the 6 weekdays, Hem Bezo, there in Zeir Ampin. Chesed Gvura Tiferes Netzach Hod Yisod, the 6. Kumeshe Kosov Sheishes Yomim Osa Hashem Es Hashemayim Ve'esoretz. So it says 6 days, so that it's translated 6 days Hashem made Shemayim Ve'eretz. It's the 6 spheres with which Hashem made. Because otherwise it would say B'Sheishes, in 6 days. Bisa B'Zoyar. And then the Zohar says that Kol Yoima v'Yoima Ovid Avidate. Each day does its work. Chesed on the first day and Gevurah on the second day. The Shabbos, which is the 7th day, is Malchus Kanal. The Lochein Mitzad Zesha Malchus Yordo Lamato, because Malchus has descended below. Ubefrat Mitzad Yiridos Libya, especially that Malchus descends, her descent to Bri Yitzirasiyah. Over there, it goes down all the ways from Atzilus into Bia. That's considered death, going into leaving Atzilus, it descends. So then Hashabbos Malchus Mekabelas Mishesh Me'achel. So then the Shabbos, which is Malchus, receives from the 6 weekdays, which is the Zeir Ampi. That's the idea of the work to sort out through the avodas habirurim. We sort out nefesh habahamis, all the physical matter during the sheishes me'achol, and the reward and the benefit goes to malchus. But after and through this avodah, nase b'Shabbos aliyas hamalchus. So then on Shabbos there becomes that elevation of malchus midiyah. So malchus goes up from Bri Yitzira Asiya ad Aliyah l'Shorshim Mekoyer always to its source. Oz mis alis l'mayla mizo. Then it goes up from higher than Zoh. Goes up all the way till Kesed, Pnimis HaKesed, to that lo atzim mashpeas gam l'chol sheishis me'achoil, so that it becomes the mashpia also to all the 6 days of the week. Zoh, the name is Baruch and Kulu Yomim, from Shabbos, all days are blessed. Zayin, Zoh l'chodedi likras kalop ne Shabbos nekam. So what are we saying here? Shubakoshes neshamas Yisrael. The Yidden asked, L'chodedi, come, my doidi, come, Zoh, shochas azov malchus, go to the kras kala to kala. L'tchilas ham shochi l'chodedi likras kala. First it starts of l'cho, just go. Alicha bilvad. Then, b'nei Shabbos nekablo. Then the Shabbos we will regret, we will receive, which am shocha pnimis. B'nei Shabbos. The Pnei of Shabbos will receive Shemizgale B'chinas Pnimis HaMalchus, that the inner Malchus revealed Ba'ad Kemoi Shimushreshes Ba'atik, till the extent as it's rooted in Atik. The Lochein Nekablo Loshin Rabin. Nekablo, let us receive, because this would include Zoh as well. Shegam Zoh Mekabel Meshoresh HaMalchus. Also, Zoh receives from the Malchus. Not only Malchus gets from his source, but it shares it in his mashpia to Zoh. Eishes Chayil Teres Baila. The wife of the Chayil becomes the crown to Zoh. Malchus becomes the mashpia in Zoh. Ukemoi shehu l'maylo. The Zoh Malchus, just like it's above by Zoh Malchus. Derech zehu v'chol mashpia mekabel. Same thing is by any time when there is a mashpia and a recipient, through the recipient, it adds to the mashpia. As we said, from the Talmidim, I get more than everything. As we said before, he gets the etzem atainut, ability murgash, the frat, the chosen, the kala lamata, especially when we talk about here by physically below a chosen akala. Shal davke al yidei ha'amshocha pnimis, that is specifically to the inner hamshocha. Then the wife of the chayil becomes the crown of her husband. The hakoil hoyo min ha'ofar. Everything comes from the dust, meaning from the bottom, everything comes. And the offer has the ekoich ein sof from the hashochas pnimis. There's an imshach koich ein sof. Then you bring down the power of the infinite, the Dodi Yishorim Yeverach, in a proper generation that will be blessed, the Bonim Ubnei Bonim, with sons and grandson Oiskin B'Torah B'Mitzvahs, that will occupy themselves in Torah B'Mitzvahs.